You're listening to If Only I Were Wiser podcast, where Raina Wilson brings together wisdom and raw life stories to provide encouragement and truth. So many times it's easy to become discouraged in your own pursuit of health because your story or circumstances look drastically different from your favorite influencer or even the expectations you had for yourself. If that is you, welcome! This space is for you to learn, breathe, and maybe just listen and see what wellness could look like for you. Hey friends, welcome back to the If Only I Were Wiser podcast. On today's episode, I have C-section recovery coach Nicole Alfred. Nicole is a registered massage therapist for over 20 years, doula, and C-section recovery coach. She works with her clients through a holistic, evidence-based approach that is not only focused on physical recovery, but also the emotional well-being. In this episode, Nicole really empowers us and educates us to go from surgery to strength and really find confidence in our postpartum bodies, as well as how to recover from a cesarean, look at our belly shelf, our new bodies, recovery even 10 years down the road, and be equipped to heal well. Also, if you hear a little one in the background, we had a third guest during this interview, which was just super sweet and adds the authenticity of, I think, the messaging we want to share here in all stages of life. So let's go ahead and dive in. Welcome, Nicole, to the If Only I Were Wiser podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I have followed you for a hot minute. So this is so cool for me, especially having my own C-section and just following your wisdom through socials. So this is, like I said, super exciting for me. But I would love to dive in and hear a little bit about you, your family. What does life look like on a regular basis for you guys?
Oh, gosh. Well, I am a mother of three now. My last baby was born October 2023. She is probably going to be my last. I just turned 40 this year as well. So not that you can't have babies over 40. I know a lot of people are doing it. It's just we had our first at 30.
Okay.
So my eldest is 10. And it's just kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, we should probably be done now because it's been 10 years since we've been having babies. And let's just kind of move on. But I don't think I'll ever emotionally feel like I'm done having kids. I think it has to be. And I've had 3 C-sections too, which as you may or may not know, usually doctors don't recommend more than 3 cesareans. So it's a lot of scar tissue. It's a lot of surgery. I've definitely heard people having 7 on some mom groups. Yeah, having like 6, 7. I actually was just chatting with someone who owns one of those kids label companies here in Canada, and she has 6. And she's had 6 C-sections. So
no way.
Tiny little woman too. So I was like, wow. But yeah, so my life is amazing. I feel so blessed to be a mom of 3 amazing kids. My husband works from home. We had such a nice setup here where like he's able to help me with the day-to-day tasks of the home and a little bit with the kids. I mean, it's mainly me still, but it's nice to know that he's there if I need him because he works from home as well. And I'm back to work, helping people recover from their cesareans in my online program as a coach. I'm also back in a clinical setting at a very small capacity, but I don't think I've been a massage therapist for 20 years. I don't think I'll ever stop being a massage therapist just because I love that in-person connection to people and being able to like physically be there with them. But I will say that working with women as they're recovering from a cesarean is like my life's purpose and passion. Mm-hmm. And I am so thankful to be here and to be able to do this work. And I've been able to turn my difficult birth experience with my first, which was 10 years ago, my emergency cesarean, and turn it into this like business and passion and something where it's like on so many deep like spiritual levels, the reason why I'm still alive and still able to do this work because of what I'd been through. So yeah, that's just kind of me in a nutshell.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing. I would love to just dive in head first and really unpack that. Like, was it your first birth that kind of birthed this trajectory for your business and for your story? Is that kind of how this all got started?
Absolutely. I started my own massage therapy clinic at 21 years old when I came out of massage therapy school. So in Ontario back in the day was grade 13 in high school. And then after that, you go to college, university. I chose to go to massage therapy college. It's 2 years. we're regulated health professionals here with like doctors and nurses in Canada. So I went to that 2 years after I graduated. I kind of floated around a bit in the profession, spas, different types of clinics. And, you know, I come from a line of entrepreneurs,
Hmm.
immigrants from Europe who have come here to start their own businesses. Even my nonna, my grandmother, who had her own kids clothing, kids clothing store,
Wow.
right, back in the day. And as a woman, like that's huge, that she had that. And so I decided to take over a small practice and blow it up and grow it to a huge clinic. And then when I had my son, I like I'd opened up my clinic beside a midwifery clinic, and I was like, I wanted to be like known as the perinatal center with like naturopaths and chiros and physio and all of the services to cater to these midwifery patients that were coming in the building. And when I had my son, I was planning for, I'm also a doula, a birth doula as
Okay.
well. I was planning for a home birth with my doula and my midwives, and I had the pool set up and everything. And being told that he was going to be a big baby and it wasn't recommended to have him at home was like, ah, that sucks. Okay, fine. You know, like I can accept that. And then laboring at home as long as possible, getting into the hospital. And then just like, he just wasn't coming out the way I
Mm.
had wanted him to, which was vaginally. His head was too big. And I was in labor altogether probably between 36 and 40 hours. And he was fine. He was not in distress. It's just my body was like, nope, not happening. I literally tried everything I could. I even at one minute had the midwives putting an ice glove up my vulva
Hmm.
to calm the swelling in my cervix down. And I was willing to try anything to avoid the cesarean because, you know, as a doula, as a massage therapist, cesareans were not painted as a birth experience. It was like painted as surgery and something to avoid at all costs. And so it was not a positive light in my head that I even had to consider having a cesarean. And when it came down to it, you know, we were able to turn my epidural down. I was able to get up on the squatting bar, trying to push him out. And they were like, his head's too big. And I was like, damn you, husband. I should have
Yeah.
interviewed. I should have interviewed
Yeah.
head circumferences. Um, you know, his head was too big and he had my husband's head. We saw it from the ultrasound picture. And even one ultrasound tech said, like, who's got the big head in the family? I'm like,
Yeah.
no. Um, and you know, and then he was born via emergency cesarean, but like it was an emergency. Like we kind of waited. I didn't want the OB who was on call because I just didn't like her. And so we waited like 20 minutes for the other one to switch shifts, and you know, I kind of got rolled in, and he was doing fine. And then during my cesarean, because I had been in labor for so many hours, I mean, I was doing like every other day acupuncture to try to get myself in
Mhm.
labor. He was 11 days overdue.
Yeah.
And so my uterus was just like exhausted and thinned out. And after they did the incision to go and get him out, they couldn't, I had tried pushing, so he was already pushed down. My midwife had to push him back up through my vulva. And
Yeah.
then that with a big baby on the incision and then such a thinned out uterus, my uterus tore down
Oh
into
gosh.
the cervix. So I had like a T-shaped tear in my actual uterus. And then it became an emergency situation. Got put under general anesthesia, woke up out of recovery, like, what the hell happened? You know, thrown into motherhood, like, no plan, and
Mhm.
not feeling myself, afraid to do the wrong things, adjusting to having a baby for the first time, trying to breastfeed, like, all the things, right? And I was like, how is there no information about this? How even my midwives were trying to be helpful, but they didn't know what to say. They didn't know what to do to help give me some kind of a plan for recovery. And I remember saying, like, one day I'm going to help people do this because there should be a plan. There should be a way for them to follow a recipe to heal properly, mind, body, and spirit, not just closing the
Mhm.
incision or seeing a
Yeah.
pelvic physio for their pelvic floor or
Yes.
doing scar massage, like everything. And that experience, it shook me from my core because I was like, I don't want my clinic anymore. I don't want to manage all these people anymore. I don't want this. I want to just be a mom. And I started feeling like I was not as connected to my business anymore, which was really hard. And, eventually I was there for a couple of years, and then my lease ran out, and I downsized into a smaller practice with two of the RMTs, massage therapists I had with me. And I did that for another, bunch of years. And then COVID hit. And right before COVID, I was preparing to have my second child 6 years later. And I had her about 6 days into COVID. Yeah,
Oh,
on March
wow.
20th. Yeah. And that was, again, another experience where I was like, seriously, there wasn't even breastfeeding help at the hospital. Like, and just imagining and hearing people online, because I just kind of launched on Instagram at that time. And I hadn't even had my program yet. I didn't even have my business yet, but I was just like, I need to connect to people. I think we were all kind of trying to do that during COVID, like trying to connect to each other somehow. And the stories I was hearing, and then, talking to people from all over the world, like, everyone was kind of going through the same situation where they were having birth surgery, but not given any information on how to actually heal properly. And then, years later, people are messaging me after having, a baby via cesarean, even 10 years later. Can I do anything about this chronic, whatever, scar pain, back pain, core dysfunction, belly shelf, whatever it is? Can I do something now? Because I didn't know. And then I went viral on Instagram a bunch of times with some of my reels, and I had no idea how to help people. When you're going viral, it's people think, oh, it's great. No, it's not. When you don't have your business set up, no, it's not. But again, it was just like the same repeated questions. And I was like, I need to have a way to help people online. And I know that if I can help people online, I can help more people in the world to hear my message, or to, be able to have an impact that, like, it's okay if you don't feel good about the way you birthed your baby. It's okay if you didn't know what to do. It's not your fault, right? And, when we talk about knee surgery, I always compare the two. I think a lot of people do. Knee surgery is given a whole rehab plan, tons of doctor's visits, tons of, physiotherapy, massage visits, like hands-on manipulation to the area that was surgically worked on. And then when you're talking about a cesarean, it's literally like one visit post C-section, not very much. Most time, if it's an emergency, there's nothing to prepare you. And then you're also given this brand new human being who has no idea how to live their life and are depending on you 100%, and you're feeling 100% drained and like you got hit by a truck. And you're all just supposed to figure it all out. And that's not okay. And I want that to change, and I'm doing it one person at a time, but, I want to change as many lives as I can, and in person and online, and spreading this information, having others advocate for themselves, even if you're not experiencing the same things as someone who's had a cesarean, but just advocating that, like, it's okay that you don't feel good about it. Don't minimize how they're feeling, and that there is actual rehab.
Right.
There is actual rehab. Your doctor's not going to tell you, it's out of their scope of practice, but there actually is rehab after a cesarean, and this is what you do.
There are so many things that definitely resonated in my own story, even from, not being prepared, to us laboring 4 days, to going to my 6-week appointment and looking at my doctor and him not even checking my scar, and
Oh no.
asking for pelvic floor therapy. And he was like, why? You had a cesarean. And I'm like, sir, I still carried a baby for 10 months. Like, what?
Yeah, exactly.
So, and then the other thing I think that really resonated was when you were talking about, and it's something I've had to hold on in my own story, is like cesarean birth is absolutely medicalized, but I don't think it disqualifies like a natural birth. Like, that is just like, I've had to change the language around what I'm talking about, or even talking with friends of like, I didn't like, all birth is natural, just some of it is medicalized. I think exactly what you said. Like, I was able to slowly process the fact that my birth mattered, and it was actually birth, like,
Exactly.
it didn't disqualify that as this like large life event. It was just medicalized because I needed some assistance.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you look at what a cesarean is, it's life-saving birth. It's a life-saving birth, because your body can't birth your baby vaginally. Your baby can't, be birthed vaginally. It's just not going to happen. And so the only way for you both to live and survive is a cesarean.
Mhm.
And natural is one of those things. Like I remember getting, and I don't know if you felt this, but I remember getting triggered a lot by like different words. Like I used to hate the word
Mhm.
C-section
Yeah.
because I was like, I had a cesarean, I gave birth. I didn't just have C-section. It wasn't just surgery; it was also birth. And doctors definitely always stray away from the fact that it is birth and that it is. They really just focus on the surgery because they are surgeons. But now I say C-section all the time because it's the easiest way and the quickest way to say the word. Right. And I'm not calling myself like a cesarean recovery coach. Like C-section recovery coach sounds so much quicker and
Mhm.
easier. But I was very triggered by that word for a very long time. Belly birth is another one that we could say. Um, and but one word that I still I'm holding on to and I'd like to rewire people's brains about is the whole word natural. Right.
Mhm.
Because natural can be unmedicated. It can be cesarean because birth is natural. Not how you birthed your baby, but the fact that you gave birth is natural, right? And then also, like, people aren't getting pregnant the same way anymore. Like, there's IVF.
Mhm.
So what? Are we gonna like criticize and make comments about people who are unnaturally getting pregnant? Like,
Right.
you know what I
That's such a
mean?
good point.
So it's like, let's just get rid of that word. If you want to have a home birth, amazing. If you want to have unmedicated, amazing. If you're gonna have a cesarean, amazing. Like vaginal birth, amazing. Let's say vaginal cesarean. Let's refer to because they're both different.
Mhm.
They're both so different, and they should never be compared. Never be compared. And it's interesting because the guidance and information that is given to someone who's birthed vaginally is the exact same for someone who's had a cesarean, but yet you've had major abdominal surgery. So it's crazy that you're given the same release of care at 6 weeks and the same information on how to go back to regular life, which is see ya, have a great life.
Yeah.
No actual recommendation. I truly think that 6 week appointment is a formal release of care appointment because you're
Mm.
no longer needing to be under the surgeon's care because according to the surgery, you've healed from the surgery. And so there's no infection, there's no reason for them to kind of go back in and redo anything in there. But actual gynecology, actual like postpartum, actual post, like rehab wise, like, no, you're not good
Mhm.
to go back to your regular life. So it's,
No,
it's actually
yeah, please don't.
no, it's misinformation, really, right? And I'd like to definitely rewire people's brains about that because there's this expectation that a lot of people have. I'm 6 weeks and I'm not feeling normal yet. Who the hell feels normal at 6 weeks?
Mhm.
Even after my third C-section, which was like my quickest recovery, I felt so amazing. My mom was actually here for the first time while I was recovering, and it was like a blissful experience. So like easy, even though it was major surgery. But I knew what to do. I knew when to do it. Like I felt so good. I did not feel normal at 6 weeks. You're so sleep
Mhm.
deprived. Your body is so deformed. Like you don't fit into anything. You feel like you're just a milk machine who's a zombie. So, no, like don't go back to regular life at 6 weeks. I think the hardest part in the US, especially, or those people who are like me who are self employed, is going, well, you have to go back to work early, right? Like, because the rest of Canada goes back at like 12 months, 18 months.
Oh, wow.
hmm But, in the US, a lot of my American clients are going back to work at 12 weeks. And like 12 weeks, you're only 3 months postpartum. Like, you're like just grasping what it is like to be a mom and getting used to sleep deprivation. And there's no normal yet. Maybe your incision is finally healed or finally not feeling so sensitive. So, but you're probably not even, if you aren't following a plan, you're likely not even back to your regular daily activities yet. And that's like the biggest thing there, right? Is that people are being told to go back to exercise and regular life or what they have to go back to work and they can't perform daily tasks around the home without pain or discomfort or using the wrong muscles.
Mhm. No, for sure, which is absurd because, we're a military family, and so the Army just changed the legislature around sending female service members back to work from 6 weeks, I think, maybe, to a 12-week maternity leave, and then I think 6 weeks of like a rehab PT kind of situation,
Wow.
which is absurd. I was talking to my mom yesterday that was active
Yeah.
duty, and she was like, yeah, I technically returned it, back to work, full active duty. But then I have like loosely remedial PT for the next 6 weeks after this. And I'm like, I still couldn't walk
Wow.
at 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, even at 3 months postpartum, I was nowhere near feeling comfortable in my body, safe around my scar, much less returning to the needs of the army. So that baffles me.
Which is like burpees and push-ups
Mm-hmm.
and laying on your stomach and jumping and running and,
Yeah,
and waking up early and be on like a very regimented schedule. And I know people could say like, well, that's the profession you chose. But I mean,
sure.
yeah, but you're a woman whose body gives birth. There has to be an exception there. Like, yes, treat women equally as far as how much you pay us and just treat us equally, and also understand that our bodies do go through menstruation and pregnancy and stuff. So there are just going to have to be some exceptions there that you can't hold against us, because honestly, you're not going to further the planet without us. So,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, I had someone recently on one of my webinars and she's like, I'm so worried about going back to the military because I'm off right now on mat leave and I have to go back soon, and I'm worried about my body and what that's going to mean because I'm 3 weeks postpartum right now, and it's like, don't have time to waste. You need to get on a plan. You need to get a recipe. And this is my issue with social media these days. And obviously, like, I love social media. I'm able to reach people I never would have been able to reach before in my life and help so many people. However, we have to look at things like social media, Google as ingredients. They're just ingredients, right? They're just saying like, hey, I know a little bit about this topic. If you want to know more, come work with me. They're ingredients. They're not recipes. So when you're seeing people talk about scar massage or different movements to strengthen your core or whatever, like, it's not a recipe that's been created for you. And that's really important because where you're at 3 weeks postpartum and what you need your body to do and mentally recover and all that may be different than what I would need at 12 weeks. So we need a recipe that's been made just for you and not some like just postpartum plan that has a little add-on for C-section recovery, which most of them are. It's like literally been made for someone who's experienced what you exactly have experienced and will help guide you along that way. And the reason why I love coaching online so much, probably more than in-person work, because when people come in person, it's like, okay, yeah, they feel great, they feel healed, they feel heard. And then they go home and I say, okay, do this one thing, 5 minutes a day, like super simple. They come back a week or two later, I didn't do it. And that, is the most common thing with people. I mean, I remember being a new practitioner back in the day, I'd print out everyone's, we didn't have apps like 20 years ago when I became a massage therapist. And so I'd print out all their exercises with the pictures and show them how to do it. And I'm like, oh, they totally just fold it up like an airplane and throw it to the back of their car. Like, that was my joke. Because every time they'd come in again, you're like, did you do the thing? And they're like, no. Because people want to come get quick fixes. They want to come get worked on it. And I love practitioners and I love working with people, but it's not the only thing. Working as a coach, I'm literally walking people through my rehab plan and I'm doing weekly coaching calls with them. I'm checking in on them. There's a community group. They can ask questions if they're not sure about something instead of going to like a random forum online or looking at more random information that's confusing and overwhelming. They can come right to that one person for 12 weeks while they're working with us, get what they need, move on. Like, stop delaying your recovery. Stop delaying you getting to your goals of whatever it needs to be, and just start now. All this information online is just confusing. It gets saved in our saved folders and then we never go back to it. And then we're in the same place months, sometimes even years later. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it sucks because, I think if it was men going through this, just the way men are, I don't think they would let things go for that long. I work with people that are 30 years post C-section at my in-person clinic, and they're being referred by a pelvic physio because maybe they're leaking pee, and they're like, yeah, your C-section scar has so many restrictions. You need to go get it worked on by Nicole. I use a special tool while I'm doing it. And it's like,
Mhm.
oh, I've never touched my scar. I don't even really look at it. I'm like, you're 30 years postpartum, 30.
Wow.
And that is crazy to me. And I'm like, men would never leave that. If it was impacting their life in such a way, they would deal with it. They wouldn't leave it. Yes, it may not be as great with doing, booking appointments for themselves for healthcare, but they would research it. They would get the help they need. They wouldn't just sit on it and let everyone else be prioritized before them. And that's unfortunately what women do, is they just prioritize the kids, the family, the home, the job, everything in front of us, and then worry about us last. And that's not right, because if you're not okay, if you're not feeling healed, it's going to impact you wanting to have more kids. It's going to impact your next pregnancy, your next postpartum. And, this is major surgery. Scar tissue is no joke. Like, scar tissue is restrictive, it's tight, it's constricting, it's not mobile. So we need to be able to work on that. We need to retrain your body how to move again, because we get stuck in all these postures. And it was crazy. This
Mhm.
client I worked on yesterday, who was 2 years postpartum, I did a little bit of rib work with her, and I taught her how to breathe into her rib cage for her core, because a lot of us belly breathe.
Mhm.
That's what yoga teaches.
Mhm.
And that's not how you do the
Right.
core work. When you're starting, you learn how to breathe through your rib cage, like lateral breathing. And I taught her how to do that. And I was doing some resisted stuff while she was doing it. And I did some releasing in her rib cage. And I did obviously some abdominal massage and all that. And then when she stood up, she was like, my pants feel bigger. And I said, no, it's just that you're not tucked in like this, sticking your
Mhm.
belly out and being in this weird posture. You've actually untucked your rib cage, and now you have more
Mhm.
space and you actually will breathe better. And it was just, she looked taller. I could see more under her chest, like that section,
Right.
in her upper abdomen now, like it wasn't covered by her breast hanging over it. So it was just
Mhm.
really interesting that, like, when we can focus on these things that C-section has an effect on, which is like posture, how we move our body, our scar tissue, our mental health. If we can work on them early enough, we're not going to be living with chronic issues later on in life.
Yeah, 1,000%. And I know that there's a lot more going into this conversation, but if we could just start with tackling the physical postpartum, like how do we tackle the physical recovery, and then kind of getting into, like you said, almost the emotional and body dissociation because of
Yeah.
shame or the narrative around cesareans, all of that. So the physical and then the emotional components of recovery.
Yeah. So physical, I mean, we have to, like, first things first is you want to make sure your incision's closed, because if that thing opens and you're dealing with infections, it is a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
And it's going to delay your recovery. Like, you want by 6 weeks, 8 weeks for your incision to be great. And the way that it doesn't close is you're wearing either like really tight wraps all day long, which, no, you need to let it air out. If you want to wear a wrap, just wear it when you're walking around, then take it off. And you also want to be cleaning it regularly. Let soapy warm water run over it. If you have like a little handheld, you can take off your shower, spray that down with some soapy water. Don't rub it, pull on it, nothing. Let it air dry. Use a blow dryer on the cool setting after every shower. And then air it out, which means you got to lay down, you got to rest.
Right.
And I know some people are in situations where they don't have childcare and all that, but do the best you can. Allow your incision to air out, not be covered up all day long. And laying down and resting is going to be a huge one, because you're not getting pulling and tugging on that skin, especially in those first 2 to 3 weeks as the skin's trying to just form on the outside. Because now, once that skin forms on the outside, all of the other layers from the uterus up are starting to heal. So if your incision's opening on the outside layer, then it takes even longer for it to close, because now your inside has to wait. You have to wait for the inside to close to
Right.
meet up to the skin again. So your skin closes the top so that you don't get infection. Your body's really smart. It knows how to heal itself. So you got to make sure that closes. And then right away, within the first 6 to 12 hours, you are getting up and moving. Movement is so important to avoid gas pain, constipation, scar pain, just pain in general, mental health, like everything. So knowing how to move your body, getting up out of bed, taking small steps, sitting down, 2 hours later, an hour later, getting up again, do the same thing, go a little bit further each time. I love marching in a spot. I love practicing squatting, obviously not a full deep squat, but just get that range of motion, movement back in your pelvis that you didn't even
Mhm.
really have while you were pregnant either, because you were
Right.
just so uncomfortable at the end. Um, and and not only is that going to help you with blood flow, lymphatic flow, but you're also going to help you with digestion. And I know for me, after my first constipation was a huge issue for like months, and it was so painful. I'm like, this is worse than labor.
Yeah.
Um, and so making sure that you have a plan for digestion. Don't eat the crap the hospital gives you. Warm soups, bone broths, warm foods, like the East, like Asia, like people in
Mhm.
Asia, what they do is they give the moms warm foods, warming foods, nothing cold, nothing overly processed or overly sugary. Like, sure, you want to have a little piece of chocolate, have a piece of chocolate, but
Yeah.
like don't make that your meal, right? One piece of cake's not gonna it's not gonna hurt your recovery, but know that whatever you're putting into your body at first is gonna help your body, your digestion to start moving. It's a smooth muscle, and it kind of goes lax. Especially with my first, I had a general anesthesia because of my tear. They put me under right away, so my everything was asleep and lazy, and so making sure that you can do that. The movement's going to help with the digestion. It's going to help with the gas buildup, which can be really painful in the chest. Chewing gum is really, really great too to help you with that gas, and no straws. And then once you're home, again, just continue practicing the squats, doing some hip flexor stretches, some neck stretches, some chest stretches. Once you're home, don't just stay in bed all day long. Get up again every 2 hours. You got to set alarms on your phone, because now you're at home. You don't have that big whiteboard anymore, like in the hospital where you're keeping tracks of P's and poos. And so
Right.
now you're using your phone. Maybe someone at home is helping you. And then just, you're not doing the stairs 5 million times a day. You're going to slowly build up to that. Maybe in a couple of days, you'll eventually go down the stairs to hang out for an hour or two, and then you go back up for the rest of the day. Like, you're just taking it easy. You've been through major surgery, and you're also taking care of a brand new baby.
Mhm.
And then once you start developing more strength and mobility in your body, and you want to go out of the house, you're not going for a 5K walk or, a 2 mile walk. You're basically going down to the end of the driveway. Or if you're in a building, you're going to the front foyer and you're going back. So again, it's like a little bit of building every day. And you're not baby wearing right away, because again, you
Mm.
don't want to put extra pressure on your body as it's healing. And if you do want to baby wear and it is really important to you, you're not doing it for 12 hours. Like, you're doing it maybe for 10 minutes, 20 minutes. I did that with my third. I'd baby wear her for just like really short periods of time to get her used to it, to get my body used to it, because it felt like I could. And that like while you're on pain meds, you're not receiving the information about pain as well.
Mm.
So don't overdo it, because as soon as you stop the pain meds, the pain's gonna just hike right back up, and that's really gonna affect your mental health. So those are kind of like the big things physically to get started. And then mentally, emotionally, I think, trying to be kind to yourself, just being realistic that there is no bounce back. The expectations that are put on you, a lot of them we do to ourselves. It's okay if you can't change your baby's diaper. You're not missing out. You're going to be changing a million more, and it's okay to allow other family members to take part in not only just helping you, but also being in the baby's first moments too. And if you're having a planned cesarean, maybe you're advocating for skin to skin. Maybe you're advocating for different things. And if you didn't experience that this time because it was an emergency and you're planning on having another cesarean, then maybe you can try it then as well. Or you can try for a VBAC. So you're really like, your life is not over because you've had a cesarean. And it
Yeah.
can feel like that. It could feel like the world comes crashing down and everything you ever wanted just like exploded. And that's just not a good feeling. But, you will eventually make peace and work through. And it may not be today because it's too difficult or it's too raw, but allowing yourself the time to grieve what you went through and slowly write out your birth story would be really, really important and really great. And then learning how to eventually connect back to your body and talk about what you went through, and with people who aren't going to minimize you, because
Yeah.
the worst thing is when people say, because they don't know any better, or they don't know what to say, they say, well, at least you and the baby are healthy. That's all that matters. And it's like, well, yes, it is the most important thing that the baby is healthy and that I'm okay and I'm alive. And how I feel about my birth matters. And I don't really
Mhm.
need you to say anything. I just want to get it out. Maybe I just need a hug. Maybe I just need someone to hear me out. And so making sure you're surrounding yourself by people like that who aren't really there to try to jump quickly and give you, words of affirmation or advice, but just allow you just to open up and just work through what you went through, which may or may not have been difficult. And therapy is a great resource. And I did that 6 years postpartum. I took a long time to go to therapy because I was like, I'm strong, I'm good. And I went for oral surgery at, about almost 2 years, 18 months to 2 years postpartum. And the nurses put in the freezing and then, like, okay, you're good. Yeah. And then all of a sudden I just had a panic attack and I've never had one in my life, but I
Yeah.
knew right away it was because of the C-section.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh my gosh, are you okay? And I'm like crying. And they're like, we don't know what to do. And it's like, I had birth trauma. I'll be okay. And they were just like, what? Like they didn't understand it. And it was because I had minimizing for so many years how I was feeling. And then finally, when I'm going for a medical procedure, which is a tooth extraction
Mhm.
and the freezing, it's kind of just triggered. Like I wasn't even aware of it. It just triggered something in me. And I was so embarrassed that I went through that. But it
Mhm.
also was like really awakening that, like, Nicole, you need to deal with this. You can't keep minimizing and pretending it doesn't exist. And so when I got pregnant finally with my second, and I was about to have her a couple months before, I was like, I'm going to go to therapy, work through stuff because I want to have a kick-ass birth. I want to have the best birth experience ever. Didn't know it was going to be COVID, but it was still such an amazing, empowering birth experience after having such a difficult one. And my third was even better. So, like I think that knowing that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, even if you don't feel it right now, that, there are people who have been through that and are now on the other side and can say that, they are healed and they have coped and they've moved on and they've been able to honor their birth and be able to work through the difficult things. No one's ever going to be able to take away, the fact that you went through a really difficult situation and how hard it was. But with time, it feels easier. And also when you actually work through the trauma and you work through the feelings around that, you actually can entertain the idea of the fact that it was a beautiful birth and that, it was a nice, and the other parts of it was a nice experience.
Mhm.
Um, a big thing for me is I never wanted my son to feel like he hurt me or he did something
Mm.
to me or that his birth wasn't beautiful or amazing because it really was. It was magical, but not in the way that I had hoped. And not all of it was magical. There was bits and pieces of it. So, that was important to me because I mean, especially for me, he hears me talk about my birth all the time. And he was like, Mommy, I'm sorry like that I did that to you. And it was like, no, like
Mhm.
understand that yes, it was hard. And, Mommy went through a very difficult time after. I had to get blood transfusions and all this stuff. Like it was really hard. And I said, because I went through that, now I am helping so many people who never would have had that help before.
Right.
Because it's hard when you've been through it. It's hard to help others and not get triggered by that. I still have moments where someone's telling me their story and I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, I feel you. Like I so feel it. And for me to not get emotionally connected to what they're saying and get brought down that, cycle because I am fine. I feel great, and I have healed. But it's, sometimes people just feel so alone. They don't have anyone around them that has been through that experience or has been through a cesarean, but doesn't have that awareness of themselves that it was a
Mhm.
difficult experience. And they've been taught to just minimize and ignore how they're feeling.
Yeah. No, that hit me in the chest.
Yeah.
What you said about your son.
Yeah.
Because as we're trying to conceive, that's just been a conversation I've had with my husband of like working through those like really big feelings and processing like I didn't fail. It wasn't a failure, and like just tackling those emotions, like you said, head on.
Exactly.
But what would you say are some of the most common misconceptions around cesareans? Like I'm thinking, and there's probably many.
So I would say a huge misconception is that you have to have another cesarean once you've had one. I would 100% talk to your doctor or your midwives or whoever and see,
Okay.
like, are you a candidate for VBAC? The Society of Gynecologists and Obstetricians do support VBAC birth. It can be still a very safe option, and it is less surgery if you can. I think a lot of people opt back in for another cesarean because of fear. And so it's like, okay, let's not make decisions out of fear, and let's maybe go to therapy and work through that, so that you
Mm,
can make a more of an informed choice that's best for you and the
right.
baby and your body, right? Because again, like, yeah, you've already had one C-section, but now you're adding another C-section and another one and another, and that's a lot of scar tissue. The other misconception is pelvic physio, as you were saying with your doctor.
Yeah.
I haven't delivered vaginally, so pelvic physio is just for people who deliver vaginally. There's a huge misconception because you carried a baby for 9 or 10 months. Your pelvic floor a lot of times tightens up out of a protective barrier. Like pelvic floor and jaw, like TMJ, have a huge connection there. A lot of people who have tight pelvic floors also suffer from TMJ because it's stress. And so the pelvic floor responds to stress in that way. And so when you're going through
Mm,
especially a traumatic birth, but even physically traumatic to your body, which is surgery, and it's in that area, it's very common for your pelvic floor to tighten up. So a lot of people experience incontinence, which is leaking pee a little bit, even if it's a little
right.
bit or once, you still leak pee. It's a yes or no, off and on light switch. You leaked once, you got it. Um, and then the other thing is the pain with sex, right? That's another huge one too. Pain with insertion into the vulva. That's another sign that your pelvic floor is tight. And you can use different yoga balls and stuff like that, but I find pelvic physio is the best way to go just to kind of get in there. You probably don't need a ton of sessions, but if you want to learn how to reconnect back to your core properly with the breath work, like the 360 breathing, then getting your pelvic floor released or worked on or stretched or whatever it needs, reconnected, will enable you to do that. Another one is that, you don't need to do scar massage because doctors aren't advising on doing anything. People don't understand the importance of scar massage. And we're not massaging away your
Huh.
scar. We're not making anything disappear. What we're doing is we're, stretching the tissue. We're decreasing the tension in it so that you're not, compensating in your body because of that tension in your abdominal wall or the tension in your scar that can contribute to like lower back pain, in the way that your pelvis moves and all of that. And I don't know if there's any more. Have you heard any other misconceptions?
Definitely the scar mobilization, because that was one thing I think I had brought up to my doctor. He was like, "What?" I'm like, "Okay, this is just you're not the person I need to have this conversation with." But I will say the like C-section shelf, like, is that normal? Is that something that,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
that's a
yeah.
big conversation I've had with other women.
Yeah, C-section shelf is, I don't know what the percentage is because I don't know if there's been a lot of studies on it to know like the percentage of women that actually develop it, because everyone heals differently. Like I worked on a scar yesterday and she had like a very thick, like hypertrophic, almost looking keloid type scar, but she
Yeah.
didn't have the hangover. And she was more a petite person too, but even that, like, it doesn't matter about the skin. Like sometimes even just the actual like abdominal tissue is like indented and tight. And so even though her scar was like thick and raised, she didn't really necessarily have the shelf. Whereas other people whose scars have healed, I've seen, indentations even while they're laying down or while they're standing. Another thing too is like you have to remember it's been like sewn together. So now it's like tightened, and the connective tissue, the fascia and the extra skin and abdominal fat from bearing children, which is normal,
Mhm.
that we get this like lower belly, which is very normal hormonally and all that as
Mhm.
women. Um, even if you've never had it before. I mean, I had a flat stomach before kids too, and now I don't. um, it will hang over that area. And so with addressing the belly shelf, we have to look at how you're standing. We have to look at your scar tissue. Is it tight? Have we addressed the tightness in the fascial layer that can cause that puckering and that overhang? The core, right? Like that diastasis recti, that abdominal separation, I found in my practice at least that like the lower abs definitely is still a lot more of a wider gap. And so that can sometimes be contributing to the look of it. And I think, when also it comes to it is that like let's normalize postpartum bodies. Because I think like so many women are obsessed about their bodies when it comes to postpartum. And it's like this expectation that it's supposed to look like this mommy influencer that you've been following who has like literally no fat on her body. Maybe she's paid for, procedures. Maybe she just wears her clothes and knows how to stand properly. Or she's a fit trainer. Like she's a personal trainer who works out. That's her job, is to work out. You don't have time for that, or the, capacity to commit to that. And so, like, let's stop comparing ourselves to other people's bodies. And if they look like that after, good for them. Like, that is amazing. Don't hate on anyone who's succeeding, but also don't hate on yourself if you are struggling to have your body look a certain way, because maybe you don't have the capacity.
Yeah. One of the things I've realized, now 3 years postpartum is that, having since seen multiple friends just go through different births, postpartum periods, was that I could not compare my body to somebody else's body, period, because like my body is built differently. Like I have friends that are tall and extremely lean and postpartum are tall and lean and, don't look anywhere near where I did postpartum because our bodies are innately different. So even if I like,
And they carry differently
Yeah.
too, right? Like some have stretch marks, some don't. Like it's just our bodies are all, we're all made up similarly, but we actually present differently. I always joke that the body that's in style now, the curvaceous body that's in style now, that was not in style, when I was 18, 20 in the early 2000s. It was about looking like you were anorexic, or like, as thin as possible, like Christina Aguilera or Britney Spears. Like I didn't have that body. I had the curvy body. I had the fit curvy body that's in style now, and I don't even have that body. But back then, I hated my body, and I worked out 6 days a week, and I ate certain way, and I don't have that body anymore. But even when I did have it, it wasn't in style, and I was insecure about it. I was not confident about it, and I was taking amazing care of it. So stop allowing society also to dictate how you should be looking, and learn your new normal, right? Maybe your new normal is a little bit of a, tummy roll, or a little bit softer skin, and it's not a bad thing. It doesn't mean, maybe you are still exercising, and that's okay. Like work on health, be a healthy mom, be a healthy person, not just someone who looks a certain way and is in dire pain. We like to look at other people and think, oh, they have it all, when really they are maybe very insecure and they are in chronic pain. Like you don't know because they're not talking about it to you. And it's easy to look at someone and pass judgment and say like, they have it all. I wish I had that. They could be fighting cancer. They could have lost their husband. Like you don't know why someone looks the way they do. And I think when we really should be looking at it as like, do the rehab and postpartum, take care of yourself so that you can live a long life and a healthy life, so that you can be there for your kids. You can run after your kids. You can, because that's all your kids want. Like they don't care if you have extra rolls on your body or not, or how soft your belly is. They'll tell you your belly's soft, and you say, thank you. Like it grew you. But not this like body dysmorphia that we've carried our whole lives because of society in postpartum. And that's a huge thing with the belly shop. It's like, how do I get rid of it? How do I get rid of it? It's like, well, I have a friend who went for surgery, and she got her boobs done. And they didn't do a tummy tuck because she was very fit. She didn't need the tummy tuck, but they scraped under her scar to detach the skin layer from her scar, so it looks more flat now.
Okay.
She still has her scar.
Sure.
She still has a little thin scar, but they use like a scope type thing where they scraped it. And if you want to go for more surgeries like that, like power to you, but at the end of the day, if that's not something you're willing to do, then let's learn to just accept it instead of hate. Like when are we ever going to be done hating our bodies? We've been doing it our whole lives,
Wow. Yeah. There's so many things just in our conversation that hit me harder than
I can go on and on
chest.
about that.
Yeah. But Nicole, I have personally benefited from this conversation, just hearing you reiterate some of these truths.
Yeah.
But I know that's going to bless so many women just listening to this episode. So how can we connect with you? What services do you offer that we can get everybody plugged in?
Oh, that's so amazing. Well, it's been such an honor to be here and have this conversation with you. As you can see, I can talk about it for hours. People can connect with me on Instagram at C-Section Recovery Coach. They can also tune into my podcast as well, Beyond the Scar. And all my links are on my Instagram on how to work with us. I have an online program, C-Section Recovery Method. It's a 12-week program that is a more of a holistic based program working on mind, body, and spirit, working on 3 major pillars: movement, massage, and mindfulness. My goal is to empower over 1 million women around the world to feel empowered, feel in control, feel healed from their cesarean, so they can move on from life and move on with their life and be happy. So that's just kind of that in a nutshell.
Yeah, no, I will definitely link all of that. I know without a doubt that you're helping so many women. So for our closing question, I'm really curious to how you'll answer. If you could provide any wisdom to your younger self or for our community that is listening, what would you share?
Oh, there's so much. I mean, I just turned 40. That's a big number, right? So you really do reflect a lot on your life. I think kind of like what I was saying, don't be so hard on yourself, because when you did look the part or you felt the part, you didn't feel it. Right. So, looking back at my 20-year-old self and how I wouldn't wear the crop tops or the mini skirts, even though I had the body for it, but I didn't look like my friends, or I didn't look like society wanted me to. And now that body type is in style, and the girls are flaunting it. And it's like, I wish I wasn't so hard on myself. So stop being so hard on yourself. As we get older and as we get wiser, we learn to accept more of our, quote unquote imperfections, or things that, that make us unique. And I know that when I'm an 80-year-old woman, I'm going to look back again and say, what was wrong with me in my 40s? Why was I so hard on myself? So, realizing that in the moment, in 10 years from that moment, you're going to look back, and where do you want to be? Do you want to be regretting that you were so hard? Do you want to be, wishing that you were more kinder to yourself, more gentler, just wore the damn bathing suit, went to the damn thing, did the thing with your kids, showed up anyways? Like, that's what it's about, because I want my kids to look back and be like, my mom didn't always look a certain way or whatever, and that's fine, but that was her, and that's what made her beautiful. And what I love the most about my mom is that she showed up, and she came and she jumped on the trampoline with us, and she came swimming, and she was in the photos, and was a part of our life. Wasn't just the one setting everything up for us, allowing us to enjoy it on our own. Like, she was literally a part of it. That's what they care about. They don't care about the balloons and the extra frizz that we like to add on everything.
Yeah.
They care about us, like, being in them and connecting to them.
Yeah, no, I'm being present. Well, thank you, Nicole. This was a beautiful conversation, and I'm so thankful for your wisdom today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yep, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. Thank you for listening, friend. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you don't want to miss any wisdom or encouragement, be sure to subscribe to the show. And don't forget to rate and review. Your feedback means so much and helps our community grow. If you're looking for more wellness wisdom and free resources, head over to livingwiselywell.com or get connected with me on Instagram at wiselywell. And if you're looking for a break from the hurried health lifestyle, check out my Return to Rest resource for tangible ways to slow down and finally find rest.